Hello learners, welcome again. We are going to discuss Unit 28 under Module 11 today. The topic of the unit is online communication and gender. In the last unit, we discussed about digital culture and the formation of sexual identity in digital space. While discussing the formation of digital sexual identities, we also discussed how such online identity formation remains platform specific. You were told about the online platform Grindr, which is the largest online community platform for LGBTQ communities. We also discussed that depending on the online platform, a person creates one's digital sexual identity, which represents the user in machine readable data. These online platforms give liberty to users to embrace their realized sexual identity, as opposed to the gender identity imposed by society, education, and media. Now, in this unit, we'll discuss about number one, the concept of online communities. Number two, the types of online communities. Number three, how gender influences experiences in the digital space. Then explore diverse issues related to gender in online communities, and also the relationship between gender and online community development. After going through this unit, you'll be able to understand what is online communities and how they are formed, what are the different type of online communities and how are they different from one another, the unique challenges faced by different gender identities online, and what role is played by sexuality in formation of online communities, and the spatial relationship between gender and growth of the online communities, that is the development of online communities. The digital landscape has transformed how we connect, communicate, and form communities across geographical boundaries. In the digital world, we increasingly rely on virtual spaces that shapes our identity, relationship, and understanding of the world. Individuals have now become a part of a community based on shared interest, goals, and identities that operate in digital space, unlike the physical space. These online communities have become essential sites for social interaction, knowledge sharing, and cultural expression. We all participate in these communities, more or less. These virtual spaces offer unprecedented opportunities for connection. However, like physical space, they are not neutral environments, but are differently influenced by existing social dynamics. We'll examine these social dynamics later in this discussion. The social dynamics of the physical world, particularly those related to gender, are reproduced and sometimes even amplified in the digital space. Let us go one by one. Let us now start trying to define the online communities. Let us examine a definition of online community. We already know that online communities are groups of people who primarily interact through digital platforms rather than face-to-face meetings. These communities form around shared interest, as I already stated, goals, identities, or practices, creating spaces for connection across geographical boundaries. Unlike in physical world, we have a geographical boundary which acts as a barrier, but in case of a digital space, the geographical boundary doesn't have to be a barrier for us. I would like to tell you about the San Francisco-based writer and editor of the magazine, the journal, Whole Earth Review, Howard Reingold. He has done a pioneering work. He has written a book titled The Virtual Community. In that book, he has noted that online communities are social aggregations that emerge from the net when enough people carry on public discussions long enough with sufficient human feelings to form waves of personal relationship in cyberspace. This is a very crucial definition. It encompasses more or less the entire idea of online communities. You can refer to the reading material that is attached with this video. You'll find attached with this video the reading material. If you go through the reading material, you'll be able to understand in detail if you have any doubts about that. Now let us look at the key features of online communities. Modern online communities display several distinctive features. There are 6 major features. One is boundary flexibility. Unlike physical communities with clear geographic boundaries, as I already stated, online communities often have permeable boundaries. Geographical boundary differences, distances doesn't matter. Member may participate in multiple communities simultaneously with varying levels of commitment and identity investment. Second is the identity expression and performance. It's a feature of the online communities. Online communities provide spaces where individuals can express aspects of their identity that might be constrained in offline settings. This includes gender expression, because digital environment allow users to present themselves in ways that may differ from their physical representation. Physically, he may belong to a different gender, but he may or she may represent himself or herself as a different gender. Then asynchronous and synchronous communication. Anybody who is has done communication studies, they will understand this. This community employ both real-time interaction, that is synchronous, chat, live stream, those kind of interactions, and time-shifted communications, like where communication has taken place at one point of time, but the receiver will receive it at a different point of time. For example, forums, comment threads, and creating different rhythms of engagement and participation because of this asynchronous and synchronous communication. Fourth is the key feature is visibility and documentation. Many online interactions have digital traces, creating persistent records of community history. This visibility affects how members behave and how communities evolve over time. Like anything that is done in a digital space is there, it remains there. So this can be, somebody can actually go back and retrieve them and find out what somebody has commented or what somebody has said at a different point of time. Fifth is power structure and governance. Online communities develop formal and informal governance systems. From moderator, there will be a moderator who will be governing the space. Then hierarchies to community established norms, there will be norms. These structures significantly influence who feels welcome and how conflicts are resolved. The power structures and the governance. Then sixth feature is technological mediation. Platform design and algorithms fundamentally shape community dynamics, influences who sees what content, how members interact, and what behaviors are encouraged or discouraged. For example, Facebook, they have a kind of moderation technique whereby which comment will come at the top of your screen or the bottom of screen, that is decided. And if some comments or some interactions are unwanted, the platform can remove that also. So they have that governance. On the basis of these key features, we have observed 6 major characteristics of online communities. One is emotional connection. Meaningful relationship develop beyond mere informal access. The people interacting online space, they develop kind of some emotional connection where the relationship is meaningful, not just informal exchanges. Then shared purpose or interest. The members separated by geographical distance come together around common goals, interests, or identities to form a community in the digital space. So they share a common purpose or interest. Then sustained interaction. The members engage in regular communication and other engagement in the digital space over time. Next one is platform mediated connection. The interaction among members is facilitated by a platform-based network digital technologies. As I spoke before, the algorithm that will decide how the members their comments are connected to each other. So the connection between members in the digital communities is platform mediated. Then boundaries and membership. The members of the online communities develop some sense of a kind of sense who belongs to the community and who does not. That means some kind of criteria are developed for membership and the community. Members identify with the community and feel invested in its continuation of the community. Then norms and governance. As we have already noted in the features, this is a key characteristics of online communities, that a set of formal or informal rules are developed governing behavior and participation. Having said this, I would now like to go back into examining the historical development of the online communities over last one century, you can say, or last 60 years. Let us now briefly examine that historical development. The evolution of online communities, it parallels the development of internet technology. The moment internet technology started to develop, the online communities also started to develop. We can see 4 distinct phases in the history of development of online communities. The first one is between 1970s and 1980s. It was early text-based communities. These communities formed around universities and research networks. For example, Usenet news groups, those developed in universities, established in 1979. It allowed asynchronous discussions organized by topic. Then Bulletin Board System, BBS. It was created created a kind of dial-up. In those days when dial-up internet connections were there, it created a dial-up communities where user could exchange messages and files. Then came text-based multi-user dungeons. We call it MUDs. That created virtual world where people could interact in real time. It is synchronous communication. Then commercial internet came. Internet was commercialized and World Wide Web was developed. That was in 1990s. As internet became more accessible, online communities expanded dramatically. Web forums and message boards organized discussions by topics and threads, while early social platforms like GeoCities, if you remember, GeoCities was a precursor to the online communities Facebook. It allowed users to create themes and create neighborhoods where similar interest groups will be there online. Then came email list servers. Email list servers that facilitate community discussions delivered directly to members' email inboxes. The end of the last century and the beginning of this century, that is from 2001, it saw the rise of social networking sites like Friendster, MySpace, and later Facebook. This fundamentally transformed online communities. These platforms centered on individual profiles, connected through friendship networks, creating new forms of community organized around personal connections rather than just shared interest. Earlier, shared interest, goals, those were predominant. Now, personal connections, that has become a predominant factor in formation of online communities. Mobile platform diversification started happening from 2010 till today. We are still developing. Smartphone adoption and applications based on Android or say Apple environment, that ecosystem has further transformed online communities. Specialized platforms emerged for different community needs like Instagram for visual sharing, Discord for gaming communities, LinkedIn for professionals, and so on. These developments have led to greater diversity in community structures and participation models. Today's online communities span social media platforms, from groups to multiplayer games, professional networks, and niche interest forums. This increasing accessibility of mobile devices has further integrated online communities into everyday life, blurring the boundaries between online and offline interactions. Having said all these, let us now look at the different types of online communities that we generally observe. Online communities take many forms, varying in purpose, structure, and interaction pattern. Based on all these, there may be different forms of online communities. Understanding these types help us to analyze how gender dynamics might play out differently across various digital space. We'll be talking about gender dynamics in online spaces during the end of this discussion. The first category of the type of online community is interest-based communities. These communities form around shared hobbies, pastimes, or subjects of interest. For example, gaming communities around certain specific games or gaming platforms. Then fan communities, fandom for TV shows, music artists, sports team, or say cinema actors. Say, for example, Shah Rukh Khan fan club. This is a fan community. Then hobby groups, for example, say photography groups, photography forums, craft communities, cooking groups, then woodwork groups, something like that. Then cultural interest groups, for example, film clubs, book discussion forum. Gender dynamics in these spaces often reflect the gendered association of the interest itself. For example, some gaming communities have historically developed cultures that is perceived as unwelcoming to women, as if women doesn't go for gaming. While crafting communities, they may have a different gender balance and norms. They may say that crafting and say cooking, those communities are for women, not for male. So this kind of gender dynamics keep on playing on the online space. Second type of online communities is communities of practice. For example, say professional networks. For example, GitHub. GitHub is a forum where code developer, program developer, software developer, they interact. The professional network kind of a thing. Then ResearchGate is for academics. Then LinkedIn, that is group for professionals. Then there are skill development communities, for example, writing workshops, language learning groups, coding forums, craft circles. And we also see industry-specific forums, for example, healthcare workers communities, then educators network. These communities emphasize knowledge exchange, professional development, and mentorship. Third one is identity-based communities. Identity-based communities bring together people who share aspects of personal identity, often providing support and validation. For example, gender-specific communities. For example, women's professional network, or say transgender support forum. Then cultural or ethnic communities. For example, diaspora network, cultural heritage group. Then religious communities, faith-based discussion forums. Then disability advocacy groups, women online communities. These communities focus on shared experiences, mutual support, advocacy, and creating safe space for the participants. Most common is social networking communities. Number 4, social networking communities prioritize interpersonal connections and relationship maintenance. Some of the examples are, as we all know, Facebook, Instagram, then dating and relationship apps, the neighborhood or location-based network, for example, like Nextdoor. These communities emphasize personal updates, live events, and maintaining social connections. Gender dynamics in these spaces often relate to self-presentation norms, privacy concerns, and harassment issues. We'll discuss this later on. Gender dynamics we'll discuss later on. Number 5 is platform-specific communities. Some communities are formed specifically on a particular platform. For example, Facebook is another example. Twitter is another example. Then gaming communities, Twitch stream, gaming guilds, something like that. Then content creation communities, for example, YouTube, TikTok. Then virtual worlds like Second Life, VR chat. All these communities are basically platform-specific communities. Then support and health communities, number 6. For example, mental health support groups, chronic illness communities, parenting forums. These communities focus on emotional support, information sharing, and coping strategies. Number 7 is learning and education communities. One example is this forum itself, MOOCs, massive open online courses, or discussion forums. This is one example of educational communities. These learning communities form around educational goals and knowledge acquisition. Then another example will be study groups on academic communities, or maybe the discussion forum that will be participating during this course. Then skill sharing platforms, for example, language learning communities. These communities emphasize collaborative learning, resource sharing, and intellectual growth. Number 8 is activism and advocacy communities. Activism communities organize around shared social or political causes. For example, environmental activism network, social justice communities, political organizations, or their platforms. These communities focus on awareness raising, coordinating action, and building solidarity. This brings us to exploration of the gender issues that I was mentioning earlier. Online communities can provide crucial spaces for gender exploration and expression. It is true, particularly for transgender and non-binary individuals. But let us examine some issues related to online communities. Digital space allows for exploration of gender identity in relatively safe environment. The environment is not as hostile as physical world. People can connect with others, sharing similar experiences. People get access to resources and support for gender transitions. It also helps development of community-specific language and practices. However, there are various challenges, including platform policies that enforce binary gender categories, then misgendering, and also targeted harassment of transgender and non-binary users. These are the problems. Let's explore some key gender issues in details. First, the numerical imbalances. Various studies have documented gender disparities in participation rates across different types of online communities. For example, while social media platforms like Instagram and Pinterest, they tend to have higher female user bases, gaming communities and technology forums often show male-dominated participation. So there is a numerical imbalance. Some communities have more women, some communities have more men. There is a disparity. These representations patterns are not just about numbers. They reflect deeper societal structures that influences who feels welcome and comfortable in a specific digital space. For instance, science, technology, engineering. This is a subject. There may be online communities which are related to science, technology, engineering related. These forums may have fewer female participants. Not because women are inherently less interested in these topics, but because cultural narratives and exclusionary practices have historically discouraged women from participating in science, technology, and engineering forums. Across many online communities, particularly in technology, gaming, and certain professional domains, significant gender disparities in participation persists. Then visibility difference. It is another issue. Even when present, women and non-binary individuals, they may be present in a particular online community, but they have reduced visibility, with their contributions receiving less engagement or recognition. Women content creator, they face different perception pattern than men, including high rate of hostile comments, more focus on appearances rather than content, different standard for expertise and authority. Meanwhile, the algorithm that we use in social digital space that determines content visibility. The algorithm will decide which content will be visible more, which content will be less visible. It may inadvertently amplify gender biases that exist in the physical world and promote the content aligning with the existing engagement pattern, the existing pattern in the physical world. So this potentially may reinforce the gender stereotyping. Third issue, gender related issue is that gender dynamic related issue is that research has continuously and persistently documented differences in how people of different gender participate, with women sometimes adopting more cautious engagement strategies in male dominated space. I mean, their participation pattern is very cautious. Then communication style. Gender also influences how people communicate in online spaces. In text-based communication, studies have found that male or men, they tend to use more assertive language, make stronger claims, and more frequently challenge other statements rather than women. Women often use more supportive language, ask more questions, and employ strategies to maintain group harmony. Then comes the issue of access. Gender disparities in internet access and digital literacy that persist globally. Studies show that women are less likely than men to have internet access in many regions, particularly in developing countries. This gender digital divide results from multiple factors. There are several factors responsible for this. One is economic barrier to technology access, educational disparities in technical fields, time constraints for women due to unpaid care work, then cultural barriers to women's technology use. All this contributes to this gender digital divide, the access to the digital platforms. The sixth issue related to gender disparity or gender dynamics is gender-based harassment. This is very important. In fact, there are different forms of gender-based harassment, including targeted harassment. Studies consistently show that women, particularly women of color and transgender women, they face disproportionate level of online harassment, including threats of violence, cyber stalking, and coordinated harassment campaigns. Then gendered content of harassment. The nature of harassment often it differs from gender to gender, with women more likely to experience sexualized harassment and men more likely to face harassment focused on competence or ideology. Like a male person, his comment or his presence, he may be harassed based on his ideology or his competency. But in case of women, in most of the cases, it is sexualized. Then intersectional intensification. Multiple marginalized identities often face compounded harassment, as documented in studies of Black women's experience on platforms like Twitter. Studies have shown that women receive significantly more harassment based on their gender than men do. The common harassment women face are sexual harassment and unwanted advances, revenge porn, non-consensual intimate image sharing, gendered insult and slurs, and revealing personal information. Women are often targeted with this kind of harassment. These harassments have a kind of silencing effect on online participants. It may lead to self-censorship. The participant may start censoring himself or herself, withdrawal from the community, or adoption of protective strategies like anonymity. These kind of strategies, the silencing effect of because of this harassment, this may limit the full participation of a participant in the online communities. Many users, particularly women and LGBTQ individuals, they report self-censoring, limited their participation, or leaving online communities altogether due to the harassment concerns. What is the power dynamics that online communities they have? This power dynamics in online communities often reflect and sometimes amplify the offline gender hierarchy. What is there in the offline world, the physical world, that power dynamic is almost always reflected in the online communities. In many online spaces, men are overrepresented in leadership positions. For example, like moderator, administrator of a particular online community, and community managers. Most of these moderators, administrator, or managers are men instead of being women. There are disparities. This can influence community norms and policies in ways that may unintentionally favor male communication styles and perspective. May not be intended. But if you have more administrator, more moderator who are male, so naturally the male communication style will be more prevalent than the women communication style that we already discussed. There are research which has documented that glass ceiling effect on online communities, where women participate actively but less frequently. They participate, but they often they participate more than the male members, but seldom rise to leadership position. They don't get the leadership position. This pattern is particularly evident in professional networks or say industry specific forums that we all, while discussing the type of communities, online communities, we had discussed that. These professional networks like LinkedIn or industry specific forums, women has less chance of going to the top, breaking the glass ceiling. Status and credibility are often assigned differently based on gender. Studies have also shown that identical contributions by male or female may be evaluated differently when attributed to different genders. Last one is that algorithmic biases. The algorithm that we create, the technical infrastructure of online communities itself can be biased or gender inequality. It can perpetuate gender inequalities. Why? Number one is design assumption. Many platforms are designed with implicit assumptions about users that may reflect dominant group perspective and needs. Then algorithmic amplification. Recommendations, the algorithm that recommends content, it may amplify gender stereotypes already existing or direct different content to users based on perceived gender. Then safety features. The design of blocking, reporting, and privacy features reflect assumptions about user needs that may inadequately address gender patterns or harassment. And data practices. How platforms collect and categorize gender data. That also reflects assumptions about gender that may exclude or misrepresent transgender and non-binary experience. Like while I am going to participate in an online community, I have to mention my gender and the options are binary, either male or female. There is no option for transgender. There is no option for LGBTQ communities. That brings us to the development, how online communities are developed and the evolution of community norms. The evolution of community norms in online communities is inherently intertwined with gender. How communities formally address issues like harassment or inclusion often reflects awareness or maybe blindness to the gendered participation barriers. When we develop policies, it may not recognize that different gender has different barriers. Then informal norms, unwritten expectations about communication styles, conflict resolution, and acceptable behavior. What is acceptable, what is not acceptable. That often have gendered dimensions. It is based on gender. That influences who feels welcome. If it is gendered, so other gender may not feel welcome in those kind of communities. Then language, community-specific terminology, the style of humor and discussion topic that may develop in ways that feel more accessible or relevant to a particular gender and less appealing to the other gender. The norm enforcement. The community, they develop their own norm, but who enforces that norm? How strictly? And against whom? That reveals gendered pattern. It may be biased against certain gender, it may be favorable to certain gender. So online community, while designing online community, what are the approaches that we can take? Different community design approaches, different gender dynamics in varying ways, different ways. There are some communities which are women only and gender specific. Some communities are explicitly designed for specific gender groups, providing space free from dynamics found in the mixed gender communities that we already discussed, that there are different kind of discrepancies. If the online community is gender specific, those kind of discrimination may be less. Example includes women's professional network, men's mental health forums, and say transgender support groups. Next one is mainstreaming inclusive practices. Other communities focus on making mixed gender spaces more equitable through policies, moderation practices, and community education. Then intersectional approaches. Advanced intersectional approaches, it recognizes how gender intersects with other identities like race, disability, and sexuality to shape participation and experiences. Different research, they suggest that different community models serve complementary purposes, with gender-specific spaces often providing necessary support, while inclusive mixed communities work towards broader cultural change. Now we may discuss the question of sustainability of online communities. Gender dynamics, as we discussed, it significantly impact community sustainability and growth. It will depend on the gender dynamics whether a community will sustain or grow. Member retention is a crucial issue. Hostile gender dynamics often lead to member attrition. They will leave the community, particularly among underrepresented groups, threatening community sustainability. If the members of the community, they leave the group, the sustainability of the community is in question. Then recruiting new members. Communities perceived as unwelcoming to certain genders will get less participation from that particular gender. Knowledge transfer. Inclusive communities typically benefit from diverse knowledge and perspective sharing that enhance collective intelligence. But if the community is not inclusive, it may not be able to sustain. Then conflict resolution. The resilience towards conflict. Communities with equitable gender dynamics and inclusive norms often develop better conflict resolution mechanism, increasing resilience. How can we actually create an inclusive online community? Now that we understand these challenges to the online communities, let us look at the ways to develop an inclusive online community. Number one is policy development. Effective policies address gender dynamics directly. If we say clear behavioral guidelines, if we give a clear behavioral guidelines that this is how you can behave in online communities and this is prohibited. Then clear definition of harassment. If you give a clear-cut definition what counts as harassment and what is not harassment, that also helps us in developing a inclusive online community. Let us now look at the emerging trends and future directions. The relationship between gender and online communities continues to evolve as both technology and social understanding of gender change. Several important trends are emerging. For example, growing recognition of non-binary identities. Then recognizing that algorithm that has bias, recognizing these. And then community-led solutions. Then intersectionality that we already discussed. And platform responsibility debates. Discussion continue about who is responsible for addressing gender-based harassment. Platform, communities, or individual users. These are the emerging trends. So understanding gender dynamics in online communities is essential for media students and professionals. By recognizing patterns of participation, communication differences, and challenges faced by different gender identities, we can work towards creating more inclusive digital space. As future media professionals or maybe research scholars, you will have opportunities to shape these communities through your work. The knowledge you have gained in this module can help you design more equitable platform, create inclusive content, and develop policies that support diverse participation. Remember that online communities are not static. They evolve through the actions and choices of their members. By bringing awareness and intentionally to your online interactions, you can contribute to positive change in these spaces. Thank you.